Introducing Release Management in ServiceDesk Plus. Thank you for downloading ManageEngine ServiceDesk Plus. In this video, we will go over the components, workflows, processes, roles, and other elements required to set up an effective release management process to control and manage your organization's releases effectively. ServiceDesk teams can now build multiple release templates with additional fields, form layout customizations, roles to manage members for each releases, and stage and statuses to control the flow of the release. The Visual Release Workflow Builder allows teams to stitch all these elements together and a drag and drop canvas. What role does release management play within an organization? Release management helps in scheduling, planning, controlling, testing, and deploying an agreed and accepted change or project processes for an organization. Benefits of release management. From identifying incidents in applications and infrastructure during a release to setting up continuous automated testing, there are numerous ways to improve release management. Building an effective release management process relies heavily on automation, collaboration, and transparency throughout the entire process flow. Here are a couple of benefits an organization gains when a release is deployed effectively. Reduces bottlenecks by involving multiple teams with the release, shortens feedback loops by consistently engaging and enabling collaboration between multiple teams involved in the release, implements testing throughout the release process, automates the release process through workflows, notifications, and approvals, and ensures transparency throughout each step of the release. Audits the release through a post-review process, looking into blind spots, downtime, unaudited changes, or any factors that stood as a roadblock for the release process. How do the release and change management processes vary? The primary objective of change management is to enable beneficial changes to be done with minimum disruption to IT services. Release management is like an air traffic controlling process, where changes are bundled together into a single release to reduce downtimes and inconvenience to the rest of the business. The primary objective of release management is to ensure that the integrity of the live environment is protected at all times. Service installations, changes to service level agreements, routine modifications, patch deployments, and changes to infrastructure components are a couple of examples of release management processes. What are the ways to initiate a release? There are multiple fronts that a release can be initiated from. When an IT change request is approved and ready for implementation, the implementation is further planned and processed using the release management process, which is controlled by the members of the change board to ensure successful release. When a project team plans a project with defined deadlines, resources, tasks, and other elements, it is the release team that works very closely with the technical team, product managers, external and internal stakeholders, along with other critical functions to coordinate a release as defined in the project. What are the components for building an effective release management process? With the new release management in ServiceDesk Plus, users can now use multiple configurations to set up an end-to-end release process. Let's take a look at the admin configurations required to put up an effective release management process. Release stage and status. Under admin, under release stage and status, we have stages from submission, planning, development, testing, user acceptance testing, deployment, training, review, and closure. Each of these stages can have multiple statuses. Click on New Release Status, provide the name, description, choose the type. Type here denotes the current state of the status, if it is pending or if it is completed. Also, choose the release roles that needs to be notified. These are the roles that will be created under admin release roles, and you can choose as much as roles that is required. You can construct the subject and the message of the notification template. While doing so, use the $ variable on the subject or on the message segment, where you will get the fields from the release template listed over here, where you could construct effective messages for the notification. Roles. Under admin, we have release roles. we have a couple of out-of-the-box roles. You can create new roles by defining a name. Choose the role will be played by what type of user. You can include all the users, including requesters and technicians. If it has to be played by the technicians of the site or the technicians of the site and group that is assigned to the release, you can choose accordingly. Also, you can easily choose all access permissions, or you could manage permissions of edit and approve for each and every stage as per your convenience. Additional fields. Under admin, we have release additional fields. You can create new additional fields by providing a name, choose the type of the field. We have multiple choices through which you could choose what type of additional field you want to create. You can also bulk import data from an XLS. You could also do bulk addition of the fields. Also, you can choose to encrypt the data of the field. So once the data is entered while creating a release, this data cannot be extracted through reports. You can define the length of the field. You can define a default value. You can set if this needs to be only for numbers. With all the available options, you can create as much as additional fields with different field types. Downtime types. Under admin, click on downtime type, and we have a couple of default downtime types listed over here. Click on new and create a new downtime type by providing the name and the description. These downtime types will be listed in the planning stage of your release, where you could create a scheduled downtime type between an asset or a service. The same downtime type will be listed in the deployment stage of the release, where you can mark the actuals. Workflow. Click on new workflow, and over here you will land on the release workflow canvas. On the canvas, you can provide a name, description, choose the type of workflow you are creating. To begin with, just minimize the window so that you can rearrange the elements as required, giving you enough space to construct your release workflow process. To add the release stages, from the drag and drop nodes, drag the stage into the canvas. Over here, choose the stage, choose the statuses that belongs to that particular stage. Once the stage is added, you can go ahead and connect the node from the previous stage to the newly added stage. Also, each of these stages have different statuses, which is accompanied by an envelope symbol. This symbol denotes that each of these statuses can have its own notification content that can be triggered. Now, under admin stage and status, we have a common stage and status-based notifications, and if you want this workflow to have a whole customized content, you can go ahead and make the changes accordingly. This way, for this particular workflow, whatever notification content you have configured for planning stage and approved status, that will be triggered for this specific workflow. Next is condition. You can drag and drop the condition node right into the canvas, and over here you can provide a condition name, choose the criteria. Based on the criteria, you can go ahead and perform operations. This way, based on the condition, you can define how the release has to progress. Switch. Using switch, you can provide multiple options through which a release process has to navigate through. So here I'm choosing category, and I'm just choosing the values of the category. So this way, I have created a switch. So from my stage, I can feed the data into my switch, and I have three choices. Based on any of these choices, I can take this particular switch node either to a condition, through a notification, approval, or to any other stage, or even to a field update. Notification. Notification elements are used for sending custom notifications on each and every stage or each and every status action on a release workflow. Quite easy. We have a process where you could create a new notification. You could set it as your own default template too. So give a name, choose who needs to be notified. We have organizational roles, release roles. We have different roles that you create under the release process. Then you can also go ahead and provide description, subject, and message. So in the subject and message, as we discussed earlier, in the stage and status, you could just add the dollar symbol. It brings all the release values, and you can choose the values that is required to send out the notification. Once you've created the template, you can choose the template that you create, and then you can choose who needs to be notified. You have notified to, description, subject, and the title. Approval level. From the drag and drop node, you can drag the approval level into the canvas, and you can configure multiple approvals for each and every stage. While configuring the approval level, provide the name. Under wait for, we have 3 different operations. Anyone to approve. For each approval level configured on the approval action, anyone can approve in order for the level to be approved. Everyone to approve. Everyone of that approval level have to approve in order for that level to be approved. First response action. If approval or rejection, whichever is the first action of that particular level, that will be considered. Following the approval action, you can then go ahead and configure the approvers. Over here you have organizational roles, release roles that you could choose for the notification. Then you can choose the subject and the message, how it needs to be constructed, and as we have discussed earlier, choose the dollar symbol on the subject or on the message segment, and you can choose different elements from the release into the notification. Once the approval is created, whatever approval is defined in the workflow will be considered for the release operation. If you have not configured any approval levels on your release workflow, then you can configure approval levels in the approval stage of the release while it is in motion. Finally, field update. So using field update, based on a condition, you can perform field updates. So I'm just creating a new field update and I'm defining closure update. During field update, I wanted to set the closure code for my release process to say close completed, and click on save. This way, when the release reaches the appropriate stage and when it reaches the particular field update value, it is going to set the closure code accordingly through the field update operation. With all the elements that we have just discussed for the release workflow, here is a completed workflow from start to end with all the stages, conditions, notifications, and approvals. Release templates. Under admin, click on release templates and click on new release template. Over here, you can provide a template name, choose the type of template. So this is a way where you could easily filter between general templates or emergency templates, and each of these templates can have a workflow defined. So as we have seen earlier, you can create different workflows and map each of those workflows to a specific template. You have multiple fields on the template canvas. You can create new fields by using the additional fields, and then you could customize the entire form, or you could customize each and every segment of the form or each and every field on the form. This way, you can perform extensive customizations on the form. Once the form is customized, click on Save. Then head to the Roles section and add the roles required. Also, you can create new release roles right from within the template. Also, you can customize your roles segment as well with different colors, fonts, sizes, texture as per your requirements. Release closure codes and closing rules. Under admin, you can create multiple closure code. Just click on new, give a name, and click on save. These are the closure codes that you could use on a field update operation on the workflow to set on the release once the release is going to be completed. So you could make use of these closure codes to denote the closing process or the success closure of a release. Under admin, we have release closure rules. You can define what are the parameters that needs to be fulfilled before the release moves from one stage to the other. So you have different closure rules that you could configure for each stage of the release. Let's look into the complete implementation of a release workflow by migrating an Oracle DB service with the help of release management. To begin, I'm under the release tab, and earlier we have seen how to create all the release components that is required under the admin section. Now, using those components, I'm going to start creating my release. From the release tab, I'm just going to click on new. All the templates and the relevant workflows that we have created will be listed. And since this is a particular database server migration, I'm just going to choose the appropriate template. Once done, the relevant workflow is applied, and as you can see, the template is segmented using my template features. I'm going to start filling the details. Once I've filled all the fields under each and every section, along with the scheduled start and end dates, services affected, assets involved, CIs involved, along with the title, the description, and with the release roles that we have created, I'm going to click on Save. Now, this is my first step on submitting the release. Now that my release is created, it has all the details that is required. This release now has the workflow mapped. So anyone who needs to know how the release is going to progress, they can refer the workflow and they can navigate accordingly. If there are any errors that would be shown, it would be marked in the workflow, as well as you can check the history tab of the release. Once the submission stage of the release is complete and you're ready to move the release to the next stage, you can either move the release to the next stage by just updating the status, and also if you have defined approvals in between, based on the release workflow and the approvals, the release will navigate accordingly. Now that the release is under my planning stage, I again have a lot of details that I need to capture, such as the impact details, the rollout plan, backout plan, checklist. So once I've captured all these details, this is going to help us plan the release accordingly. Then I can define the downtime that is required for this release process to happen. I can click on Add New Downtime and I can provide a description. I can choose the type of downtime. So this is the downtime types that we have already created in the admin section. I can choose the services that will be impacted by this particular release. So I can mention all of them into my services affected segment on the downtime. Likewise, I can choose the CIs, define the scheduled start date and end date of this particular downtime, and click on Save. Likewise, you will have options to add tasks. You can add notes to your release throughout different stages as well. You can set up approvals, and the approvals will be listed over here. So if you have configured approvals in your release workflow, the same will be listed on each and every stage. And again, you can get to know the status comments when the release moves from one stage to the other. Now that my planning is completed, I'm setting my planning to approved and I'm updating my status. So once I update my planning status, the release moves to the next stage, which is development. So as you can see, just by updating the status of a particular stage, the release moves from one stage to the other. Now, all these particular stages, especially from submission to closure, you will have details, tasks, notes, any approvals that you've configured that would be listed, status comments, and so on. So as you can see here, we can go from each and every stage, and all these stages will have enough space to capture all the details that is required. Since the release process involves multiple activities, each and every stage has detailed space to capture multiple information. Just to know, under the deployment stage, the downtime that we have added in the planning stage will be listed over here. Here is a quick comparison. In the planning stage, for the downtime, we capture the schedule start and the schedule end date. This is the only parameter for the dates. But under deployment, the downtime that is listed over here, you can capture the actual dates of this particular downtime. So I click on Edit. The data that is defined in the planning stage will be grayed out, and during the deployment, I can go ahead and mark the actual start and actual end date of the downtime, and I can click on Update. Apart from all these stages, you can track the roles that you have mapped on your release from the roles section. The Associations tab will list all the associations that are part of this particular release. So you can associate a change to a release or a project to a release. So whatever is being associated will be listed over here. So when you click on Associate Existing Project, the corresponding project will be listed, and I can just click on Associate. all the tasks that are added will be listed under the task segment. Likewise, you can add reminders that you need on your release, and these reminders will be listed on your home page. Work logs added will be tracked in the work log segment, and all your approval summaries will be defined in the approval summary segment. Conversations that is happening between the release members and the owners will be tracked under the conversation segment. So this conversation includes email conversations that has been sent from the mail service system, the notifications from the system that is being triggered automatically, and the notes that has been added. Likewise, the history is going to denote the complete data of this particular release. You can also see your status comments, approval history, and the complete history from the History tab. During any time of your release process, you can also make use of the Action segment to add notes, reminders, tasks, work log. You could also send announcements or make announcements, and you can send notifications. You could also associate change or projects right from the Actions tab of your release. From the release, when you're associating a change or a project, you can choose more than one element and you can click on Associate. Finally, we are going to see the list view operations that release management offers. From the release list view, you can track all the releases and you can choose between different views. You have list view, which is table view. You can switch between a classic view, and also you have a release calendar. Using the release calendar, you could track all the releases based on the release types from one place. Not just that, you can track the workflows of each and every release, and you could create different release filters, which is advanced filters to filter out your releases that is being created. And this way you could manage your release list view as and how it is required.